We're talking about anxiety
Yes, the
today.
big
The big
anxiety,
anxiety.
which seems to be everywhere, and is everywhere to be fair. But it does seem to have its moment at the time. It's coming out an awful lot in the work we do, definitely. And I don't know if people really understand what anxiety is and how it works. They give it a label, which I don't know whether or not the label's helpful as a all-encompassing aspect of anxiety, because there's a lot in it, for people. So I'm not sure the label just is a helpful process. I think the education or psychoeducation about anxiety and how it affects and where it comes from, the kind of components of it don't get talked about.
Do you think it's an overused term?
I think it's a catch-all that's
Catch-all.
easy
Yeah.
for doctors and therapists and people to use. I think it's a catch-all, and I think it doesn't get subdivided, if you like, into the components of it. They just kind of bunch it all together and give it this terminology, and then just give tablets. Well, they do. They do.
Yeah, it's very medicalized. I remember reading a quote from Carl Rogers saying the treatment for anxiety should be more about personal growth and development, and not about taking a pill. And I think he's absolutely bang on. To come back to your idea of different definitions or different shades of anxiety, what would you be thinking of there?
Some people will say they are anxious because they're worried. So they might have redundancy going on. They might have a possible loss of something happening in their world and their life. And because it's not something they know, the anxiety is an unknown in my world. Anxiety is always an unknown. So if we don't know something, we worry about it because we worry about how it's going to affect us and our lives or our people around us or whatever reason that we're kind of worrying about it. And I think the worry gets kind of pushed into this anxiety. And I think anxiety and worry are slightly different. I don't think they're exactly the same animal in a sense.
No.
Because we all worry and we're all anxious, but it might not stop us doing what we do because we're anxious. So it's kind of a tipping point, isn't it? And I don't know if people talk about that as a process of what you can cope with or what you can't cope with.
Like many of these conditions or states, it's very much an individual thing, isn't it? Well, I just wanted to come back to a very small point about terminology. When you said people come to you and they say they're feeling anxious, I don't hear that word very often. I think that word is falling into disuse. People I find tend to come on and say, I have anxiety.
Okay.
They don't say, I'm experiencing anxiousness about such and such. I have anxiety. And then I'll say, when was that diagnosed? Oh, it hasn't been diagnosed. I just feel, like this all the time, stressed all the time. And I say, oh, you're feeling stressed. And that takes us into the realm that you're referring to, I think.
Yeah.
But would it be fair? This is my pet theory about anxiety.
Okay.
A continuum. Like I love continuums. Maybe the starting point is worry, as you say.
Yeah.
Maybe that develops into stress. Maybe that develops into anxiousness. Maybe that develops into what we broadly calling anxiety. Maybe if you want to push it further, you get into anxiety attacks, where it's getting quite desperate.
Absolutely.
Would that work? Do you think that sort of?
I think so.
These are all linked.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an escalation going on.
I think so. I think like a lot of things can escalate, can't they? And I'm sure, people who have anxiety, if they are an anxious person, then I don't think you can stop being an anxious person. I think it's kind of part of you. And whether it grows, whether it gets on that continuum and makes it so you can't do this or that or the other, then that's where you get that kind of, it's debilitating. You can't move, you can't get out of your house, you can't get out of your bed, you can't, you know, that kind of like process of agoraphobia, which is obviously an extreme aspect of it. But I think you're right. I think it grows, and I think it's like a bit of a virus or a bit of a mold process, that it becomes more and more debilitating as you go along. And if you can nip it in the bud, in a sense, you can then get ways of dealing with it. Sometimes when I'm working with people who are anxious and they do have anxiety, we normalize it. And that helps. It doesn't get rid of it. It's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it helps them to understand that there are some things that will make you anxious. And that's normal. And if they can see that kind of continuum, as you called it, that actually this part of the continuum is what everybody has to deal with every day of the week.
Yeah.
But then it can lead to and grow and fester, in a sense, to kind of make these things that really are, you can't move, you can't get out of bed. It's no worry.
Well, having this continuum doesn't mean that every time somebody gets anxious, they have to start at the beginning and work up. I mean, if somebody has, I know, they're facing something like redundancy, and they're getting anxious about that, they could suddenly be just there on that part of the continuum, can't they? You could just suddenly feel anxious because somebody said to you, "You're going to be out of work in a month or so."
Yeah. But then you add to that, don't you? Because you can say, well, you're going to be out of work soon. And then you say, well, I can't pay the mortgage. I can't feed my kids. I can't have a car.
It becomes a multi-layered worry and stress.
And it adds on to it.
Yeah.
And so that increases the anxiety, because now we've not just got the anxiety of money, we've got the anxiety of job, we've got the anxiety of car, feed the kids, whatever.
Yeah.
As a process of that connects to all these other things, doesn't it? And so I think that then grows and develops, and that's where it can become really not easy to live and to be part of the world.
Well, we could talk about ways in which people might address it in a moment or two. I think I'll be really interested to see where you come from on that. But what I hear you saying, I think I like this idea. Anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
It can be a healthy thing, a good thing, because it's telling you something. It's part of maybe survival mechanisms triggering off, telling you that you need to act on something. And in that sense, it's perhaps a bit like anger, which has a similar kind of nature, doesn't it? It's a good and healthy thing if you get angry, because it's saying to you, here's something that needs sorting out. Change this, deal with it.
I think so. Because I think if you use anxiety as a way of balancing the process, the whatever's happening, the situation, scenario, you can use the anxiety in a way that says, actually, yeah, this is not easy to get through, but I got through it before. There's this experience in my life where I was okay, I came through it. So I think that reflection process with anxiety is helpful for people to kind of get that.
Yeah.
You know, because it can be very much a feeling, it's only me. There's only me in the world that's actually experiencing this. And actually, no, I think it's healthy, some anxiety. I think it makes us stop, think, check, do some kind of aspect of checking risk or checking, you know, danger. You know, if you kind of like stood with the pole and you're going to go down the hill and into a pond at the bottom, you know, when you stood there and you're not let go, it's like you'd be anxious, wouldn't you?
You would, and why would you be anxious? Because you're fearful. So I think fear underpins all of these actually: worry, stress, and anxiousness, and so on. Fear of catastrophe, fear of things somehow not being able to cope, fear of losing something,
Indeed.
fear of being hurt. So this is probably what we're dealing with underneath all this. It's fear. So I often say to clients, what are you fearing? What are you scared about?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think people are too quick to pathologize. Oh, I'm worried, I'm stressed, oh, I've got anxiety. And
yeah,
that can be misleading. It takes you down that route to medication, and it's not a healthy place to start, is it?
No, it isn't. And I think you're right, that fear underpins it. I have a kind of a mantra I use with fear. I say fear is the first step before awareness. Once you're aware of something that you're fearful of, you can then transcend that.
Yep.
And then the next step after awareness is acceptance. So I'm accepting that this line is secure, that I'm going to go down this hill on. I'm accepting I've got an harness on.
Yeah.
I'm accepting the person before me went down, there was no problem. So then we go back to, in a cycle, the next thing that's fearful. Fear is a continuum again. It just keeps going round and round and round the cycle. Because there's always something we're going to be scared about.
Well, life is full of challenges, isn't it? And life is full of things that sometimes go wrong, like a work situation, like a relationship, like a loss. What in your mind then is the the fear thing? You said awareness is the first step. Awareness of what? What do you think helps clients there?
Well, I use a kind of a visual of the roller coaster ride.
Okay.
That you've never been on before.
Yeah.
You've never experienced it. So the first time you go on it, you're kind of like on this track thing, but you don't know what it's going to do, how it's going to do, what it's going to do, how it turns, how fast it goes, because you've never experienced it. You might have seen it, but you haven't actually physically sat in the seat. So that's going to be very fearful. And they build that fear because that's part of the ride, that unknown, I was working with an engineer once years ago, and he said, when they get you to the top and they hold you, it's 11 seconds. And I said, why 11 seconds? He said, because 11 seconds is all a human being can stand before they jump out.
Okay.
And if you look at these kind of reality TV things, and they say, and the winner is, and there's this gap of time. And if you count it, it's nearly 11 seconds, which is.
Well, I'm going to be counting everything.
I know. Sorry, my apologies. But I thought it was a really helpful thing because as you go on that roller coaster and you experience it, it will only do what it does. It will never do anything different. It's on a track.
Yeah.
It can only do the same thing again and again and again and again. So the second time you go on it, you will not be as fearful because you have the experience, the knowledge of what it did.
You have the awareness of what experience is going to be like and do to you. Therefore, it's taken away the unknown, the uncertainty.
Indeed. Yeah. And that unknown uncertainty is the fear, the anxiety. And anxiety for me is always a forward-thinking process. It's never about what's happening now. No. It's about where now we'll end up.
Yeah.
And what we do as human beings, we always go worst-case scenario to keep us safe, I think. I think it's a primeval thing in our heads. So we always think about the worst thing that can happen, and then we're covered. Because as long as I've thought about it, if it does happen, at least I've got some coping strategy, some thought process about it.
Yeah, except for some people, that anticipation of what might occur will stop them, as you said, agoraphobic or something along those lines. Many people might not change their job, they might not commit to a relationship, because of these fears
Mhm.
and therefore anxiousness about making a decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's giving people the evidence, isn't it, that
It is.
actually this is safe.
It's not good. It's not nice. It's going to happen, possibly.
Yeah.
But you can find ways to cope with it.
Mm.
And once you've found a way to cope with something, then you can use that as a reference point for coping with things in the future.
So people, or like a roller coaster, if they haven't been on it before, they overestimate how awful this is going to be,
Indeed. Yeah.
and they might also overestimate the impact on them
Mm.
of that experience.
Mm. Yeah.
Transferring that into real life, they might feel they can't cope with what's going to happen.
Yes. That this will be so debilitating that they just cannot survive.
Okay then, nature or nurture?
Oh, God, blimey, that's the argument, isn't it? Yeah, that's a really, really deep one. I don't know. I think a bit of both. I certainly know people who, when exploring psychodynamically their process of starting points for anxiety, it isn't always about them, it's about the people that were around them when they were younger.
Yeah.
And they've kind of dictated that process by their input. And then the young person takes that world, because we're not born with the world, we take the world we're given, and that rubs off on us. So I think sometimes it is nature, i.e., I think all human beings do go to worst case scenario to us, whatever they believe is worst case scenario. I think that's about their imagination, to be fair. I think all people will do that, but I think it's a saving process as we grow up to ascertain risk and processes that we go through.
Yeah.
But I think other people can have an impact on that.
So there's maybe some sort of primal evolutionary aspect of us that it's about survival and noticing threat when it comes in, and then the fear makes us take action or look after ourselves in some way. What we're also saying then, I think, is that it's nurture in the sense that it's a learned response to things based on our role model, usually our parents, maybe other sources.
Yeah, any significant adult that we trust.
Yeah.
If, for example, we've got an adult that every time we go out from an early age says, have you got the right shoes on? Have you checked the weather? Have you got your right coat?
Mind the road.
Sandwiches?
Watch out for dogs.
Say that before you go out the house.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, and probably wouldn't happen if you said once. But if there's a drip effect of that kind of, are you all right? I think that leads to more anxiety as we grow up.
Because the world is a fearful, dangerous, unsafe place.
Indeed. Yeah. Which is not necessarily true, but that adult is obviously not doing it because they want to hurt us, doing it because they care about us. So they're making us kind of think about all these things that could or could not happen because they want us to be okay, but it can instill that anxiety as a process.
Well, if that parent is hypervigilant themselves already, the likelihood is they're going to transmit that, aren't they, to their children.
Absolutely.
By saying these things, but also just behaving in a hyper-vigilant, fearful way.
Yeah. I think that leads to adults who basically have this fear aspect of, is it okay? Am I okay? Is the world okay? Kind of questioning process. And then that stops them doing some stuff, possibly, or restricts them doing some stuff. So you might not get leaders with those kind of things. You might get people who follow.
Yes.
Because they don't want to make that decision. They want somebody else to make the decision,
Yeah, this is an aspect of anxiety or anxiousness, however we want to think of it, which is procrastination, people not being able to make choices, life choices, big choices sometimes, and decisions about direction they want to take, or, or what task to do next, what direction to go in next. This crops up a lot.
Yeah.
And coming back to your point about awareness, it's sort of a psychoeducation process that we do, isn't it? Of being aware that this might have come from your childhood and growing up around people that are hypervigilant and constantly on alert. You can help a client externalize the anxiety. This isn't in you. You've learned this from somewhere. You've adopted it from somewhere, and you can unadopt it. You can unlearn it,
or at least challenge it.
Definitely challenge it.
You might not be able to stop it, but challenge it to a point where you can take control of it. I think it's really hard because I think if people have got anxiety and they don't come to see somebody like me or you or the people that are therapists or counsellors or psychotherapists or whoever, they just go to the GP and the GP gives them a tablet, which will have an effect, obviously, but it'll only have a physical effect. It won't necessarily help them through that anxious process and give them tools to do it.
Well, it takes away the opportunity to learn, doesn't it? And just provides a temporary relief. But unless you're committing to be on those meds for life, or unless it's a situation that will pass and you're going through a difficult time, I can see there might be some benefit there. But surely, as in the Rogers quote we were thinking about earlier, the personal growth comes from working your way through this so you can handle it next time without depending on being medicalized and drugged.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the work we do, I mean, I always say, I'm here to put me out of the job with clients.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here to do, is make me redundant.
Yeah.
That's the only goal I've got, really. So they can take whatever they can take and they can do this stuff themselves. They don't need to come to me or something like me. So that's a learning process, an educational process of how I get through these things.
A good note to end on.
Yeah, it is.